One night, while it's heavily raining outside, Lin Ji, a bookstore owner, laments that he may not have any customers that night due to the weather, but he's determined to have his store remain open even if there's only a slim chance that someone will be seeking shelter in his shop. He thinks to himself that he's such a nice person and hopes that his kind gestures will be rewarded with some income. Elsewhere, Jixu is fighting with a bunch of men under the heavy rain. She skillfully deals with them with her sword and snaps the neck of her last opponent. However, she's injured, having broken 4 of her ribs, as her regeneration will take at least an hour. Even with the tainted blood she injected into herself, she needs to find a safe place to rest, or else she'll be in danger. Thinking that she needs time, she leaves the bloody scene. Eventually, she spots a place where the lights are on inside and realizes that it's a bookstore. Since it's too convenient, she wonders if it's just a coincidence or a trap. Left with no option, she decides to risk entering the store. Inside, she spots a man who immediately welcomes her. Mysteriously, he states that he's been waiting for her, a beautiful customer braving the rain. Inwardly, Ji judges that the woman before him has a rich story behind her, and he quickly decides to use all of his salesman talents on her. While he offers her a hot towel so she can dry and warm herself, Jixu is baffled at what he said and how he get prepared the one thing she needed, a towel. She thinks it can't be a coincidence and that the shop owner must know something. She thanks him, while her mind races to determine if he's from the secret instrument tower, the Truth Society, or if he's an appointee of Walpurgis Night. Though she can't tell yet, what she does know is that he's no ordinary bookstore owner. She confirms with him if he's been expecting her, and Ji replies that it's simply fate before commenting that she looks like she's in a sticky situation. He implements his first salesman technique, which is to allude that she has a problem. When she says yes, Ji thinks it's his chance to comfort her. Implementing his second technique, Ji guesses out loud that her problem has something to do with relationships. He's being purposely vague, and just as he expected, she takes the bait. Out loud, she says that she's been betrayed and it's all one person's fault. She thinks of the root of her problems, an egg called the spawn of the magic mirror. It's an egg from a magical beast that can attract the souls of others, and because of it, years of companionship have been ruined by greed, which she thinks is a pity. Meanwhile, Ji is under the impression that her lover has a mistress and gets excited since the more brutal her problem is, the easier for him to exploit her. He then states that though she's been betrayed, at least she finally truly knows who that person is. Agreeing with him, she suspects that her so-called allies will just betray her again for profit. When she responds that she's lost and hurt so much by their treachery, Ji thinks that the cheater must have hurt her feelings badly. Seeing another chance to use his silver tongue, he tells her that since she finally knows what's real and what's not, she doesn't have to pity those who hurt her even if they were once close to her. Jixu is stunned, thinking he wants to use her to plot against the hunters. She wonders if he's a high-level black mage as he's sly and elegant and also hates hunters. When she asks him what she should do, Ji uses another of his techniques, give advice. He tells her to act in vengeance and not go easy on those who hurt her, while inwardly, he thinks he's about to secure a regular. Jixu is shocked and states that she's not fully prepared yet to lose her humanity. Though he gets confused by what she said, still, he states that what she needs is a book. In Ji's eyes, the book, which title is Rousseau's Confessions, looks normal, but in her eyes, it's a morbid-looking book, titled Blood and Beast. Jixu has never heard of such a book before, and she opens it, revealing bloody pages which seem to wrap around her. A second later, she realizes it's a lycanthropy book. In lycanthropy, power is contained within the blood, and the strength of a hunter originates from the dream beast. They gain part of their powers by injecting some of their tainted blood into themselves. The greater the potency of the blood, the stronger the hunter gets. However, the side effects of doing it are ultimately fatal. That's why she can't just believe that the bookstore owner has a way of controlling the tainted blood. Just the book in her hands would be able to invert the entire power structure. She asks him if she must really do it, and he firmly says yes. Meanwhile, Ji thinks that though the woman looks strong, she's just a girl with a broken heart, and he hopes that she can find comfort in the book he recommended. Because she looks like she's about to cry, he tells her some quotes from the book in her hands, which in his eyes are Rousseau's Confessions. He tells her that everyone has a bestial desire, so she must confront it to be reborn. It's his last technique, giving a decisive conclusion by guiding her to the right path. He raises his cup, toasting for a new tomorrow. Jixu thanks him for his advice and shocks Ji by downing her hot cup of tea. Afterward, he hands her a book card so she can check out the book. Seeing her name, he's reminded of Bonan, the famous millionaire who developed an underground district. and he figures out that the woman before him is his only daughter. Thinking that she's a big catch, he's excited that he may be able to earn enough money from her to renovate the storefront. Trying to be calm, he tells her that the book's loan period is 1 month before handing her an umbrella. Thanking him, she asks to know more about him. He wonders if he accidentally flirted with her before revealing honestly his name and stating that he's just a normal but charitable bookstore owner. However, it only makes her think that he doesn't want to reveal his real identity to her. After they bid each other farewell, Ji is happy to have helped others and thinks this must be the reason why he got transported into this world. On the street, Juxi is thinking that Ji is horrible for wanting her to deal with the traitor before the deadline, when she suddenly freezes, sensing a fearsome presence. It's a man who's walking towards her with a book in hand. Ji is organizing his bookshelves when he spots the book he'd written, Rituals and Folklores. He feels nostalgic, recalling the memories from before he transmigrated to Nokin, the city he's currently living in. 3 years ago, he was a professor of folklore, reading at the university library. It was already closing time, but he wanted to read longer, so the library assistant left him to close up the place. Outside, she met with her friend, and they talked about how the professor loves books so much that all his salary is spent on buying them. Finally alone, Ji locked the door and said out loud that his preparations for the ritual site were finally complete. He knew that fulfilling his wish is just a dream, but he was determined to do anything to achieve it, no matter what the cost. Pressing his hand on the magic circle, he wished to own all the books in the world. When nothing immediately happened, Ji sighed, saying he should have known that it wouldn't work. However, there was a creature that appeared behind him. When he turned around, he saw massive doors with a large serpentine eye in the center. At that moment, he realized one thing. If he pushed the door open, he'd achieve his dream with the price of never again being able to return to Earth. Naturally, he didn't hesitate at all. Currently, he thinks that living in Nokin isn't much different from before, but he does wonder if there are any consequences of conducting that ritual. Still, he's very happy with his life as he can randomly refresh the bookshelves and read an endless supply of books. He's even able to comfort his customers with his recommendations. Out loud, he praises himself, saying that though he hasn't had new customers for a while, his conversation skills haven't diminished one bit. He smiles, thinking the young lady from earlier must be happy right now. Meanwhile, Jixu is sweating, eyes wide, as she crosses paths with the fearsome man. She couldn't move at all. The man recognizes the book she's holding and calls her lucky for having it. Jixu feels as if a dangerous snake is coiling around her. A moment later, she glances at the book the man is holding, the Akasagarbha Sutra. She staggers next to a wall, finally recognizing the man. At the same time, the man enters the bookshop. Ji welcomes him, asking him if he's here to return a book. The man smiles, asking Ji to call him by his real name, which the other agrees to, calling him Mr. Wild. The two make pleasant small talk, while Jixu observes them from outside. She's stunned as the customer in the store is none other than the black-scaled faceless, Frank Wild. According to the rules set up by the Truth Society, mutants can be classified into 4 categories: abnormal, panicky, destructive, and indescribable. Wild is a destructive black mage, and his iconic features include the mask he wears and his dark green pupils due to his half-serpent blood. There's a bounty on his head as he once fought one of the 10 holy knights from the tower and leveled an area of around 10,000 kilometers, which earned him his destructive title. Jixu is breathless, the wall cracking under her strength, as she marvels that Ji could normally chat with a mutant of Wild's level. She leaves, thinking she met someone truly extraordinary. Meanwhile, inside the shop, Ji comments that Wild seems to be in a bad mood and offers his assistance should the other need it. He muses that the man has indeed become one of his regulars, and that it's become routine for him to drop by. He guesses it's because Wild is an empty nester, who needs company once in a while. He recalls that the man has 2 children who don't treat him very well. As his lover left him and his colleagues feared him, Wild has always been alone. Ji then recalls how he met the man 2 years ago. It was also raining then when he first welcomed the man, who covered himself from top to bottom. After surveying him, he guessed that he has a rich history and is wealthy judging by his clothes. Thinking that the other is also a scholar, Ji is excited to make him his regular. Wild offers to sell him an old book that he thinks has collector's value, which the owner accepts. Ji offers him black tea as an icebreaker, but the man initially declines as his face scares people. However, Ji insists that he's a guest and assures him that he has no reason to be afraid of his customer. He also states that focusing on appearance rather than the heart would be quite a foolish thing to do. Convinced, Wild reveals his lower face, smiling before accepting the offered tea. G thinks that the other's choice of the mask is more weird than scary and guesses it's for covering old wounds on Wild's face. He then surveys the book that he's been offered. Figuring that his potential customer is interested in obscure languages, G decides to focus their conversation on that subject. He starts by complimenting Wild's book about uncommon languages, saying the words and lines are full of magic. Wild is stunned that he can sense the magic from the manuscripts. He had prepared it so that not even destructive mutants can feel anything out of the ordinary from the book. He's also surprised that the owner feels at ease with interacting with him and wonders who exactly the younger man is. Inwardly, Wild decides not to be careless even though he can't feel any aura from G. G offers him a book of Wen's called the Devil's Language as it's the most complex dialect in China. Mischievously, he silently dares Wild to understand the language. Wild's cup slips from his grip, and he stares at the green book with a dangerous-looking mouth in the center. He smiles widely, agreeing that it's indeed the Devil's Language. Meanwhile, G celebrates silently that the man liked his recommendation. When Wild asks him how he found the rare book, G is taken aback, knowing he can't say the truth as China didn't exist in their world. Confidently, he responds that the language is from a splendid ancient civilization, in which he could never step foot again. Impressed and touched, Wild wonders how impressive the ancient civilization must be. He also wonders what kind of creature G is for having ties to that civilization. When G asks for his name, the two introduce themselves to each other. Currently, Wild tells G that thanks to the language book he lent him years ago, he's found a new research direction, but he needs more clues. Wild explains that the book he first borrowed is difficult to understand as it's connected deeply with the culture and customs, so he needs to read something to better understand it. After thinking for a moment, the owner fetches the book while Wild thinks that G is selfless and generous like always. 2 years ago, he had just lost horribly to Joseph, when he met G, who guided him to a new path by lending him a rare book. As G can completely hide his power from him, Wild thinks that he must be a learned hermit beyond the indescribable level. It's been 2 years, but he has finally some clues about the forbidden spells within that language book, and he wants to thank G for his help. Spotting his book from the shelf, G takes it and hands it to a stunned Wild. While G is only seeing his book Rituals and Folklores, Wild reads the title as Cultes de Ghouls. Floored, he asks him if he's the one who wrote the book, to which G confirms. There are 3 mainstream religions: the faith-worshipping Truth Society, the moon-worshipping Church of the Dome, and the Church of the Plague, which worships the fog of the high walls. However, Wild has never heard of the cult of ghouls, and just based on the evil aura coming from the book, he would have judged the writer to be evil. Wild wonders if G is trying to start his own religion. When asked, the other confirms that rituals are one of his research topics. Amused, he then tells his customer that it has changed his destiny, but that happened a long time ago. From his words, Wild figures out that the other is an alienated scholar who studies forbidden topics, and it must be why Lin is in hiding. He comments that the book seems to be bound by hand, and G admits that an accident happened so he wasn't able to publish it. G tells him that since they're friends, he'll lend him the only copy of his book, which stuns Wild. He thanks him for his generosity while wondering what G wants from him in exchange. He tells G that he feels uneasy having been lent such an important item. Exasperated, the bookshop owner assures him, saying that Wild reading his work would make all his research worth it. Additionally, he states that the book isn't important to him anymore as he has more books to read, and besides, all the knowledge in the book is in his brain. They can never be stolen, unlike his wealth and fame, which are useless to him. While Wild is looking at him, shocked, G silently urges the other to accept the book. As a token of gratitude, Wild gives him a statue of a gargoyle, which he says isn't as valuable as the book that the other gave him. The statue is something that Wild received from his mentor when he graduated. The gargoyle, who has great magic resistance and could identify murderous intent, has the same combat ability as a panicky elite knight. Meanwhile, G is happy with the cool-looking gargoyle that he received and thinks it looks like it could repel evil. He compliments the statue, before saying he'll look forward to whatever Wild brings him next. Wild doesn't regret what he's done as the book in his hands is worth 1,000 of those gargoyles. He's touched that G treats him well. G's customer bids him goodbye and promises to bring him a present the next time they meet. After he leaves, G happily observes his new statue, thinking it looks nicely intimidating. Just when he's about to retire for the night, black liquid suddenly appears and moves. G's eyes widen as the words form to greet him.